Hi, this is June Stanley. This is my EDL 854 Module 16. Problem identification and analysis. What do I know about the school? It's a fairly small middle school, 450 students, and the population is changing, the student population is declining, and the socioeconomic level of the families in the area is also declining as some people leave. And yet there's plenty of parents that are willing to volunteer to help at athletic events and fundraiser. The principal's been there for 4 years, Mr. Daniel Stevens. He has no help from an assistant principal, so he really has to depend on parents to help him with fundraising, and he works well with those parents. The parent in question, Mrs. Alice Bowman, her daughter Lucy is a 7th grade cheerleader, and she's quite good. She's been recognized as All-State. She got a plaque. She got an award. She's invited to march in a parade in New York, and Mrs. Bowman has asked Mr. Stevens to pay for that trip with PTA funds. Mr. Stevens tactfully denied her request and rightfully said that PTA funds should support all students, not just individuals. And so the accounting procedures, the concession items and tickets were all managed by the parents. There would be 2 parents for the concession, 2 parents selling tickets. The tickets were pre-numbered. The concession items were inventoried, and when the principal collected the ticket and concession bags from the parents after the events, he did so in the company of a custody guard, and he counted the money and balanced the funds in the inventory with the security guard, and then he would take them to the bank for deposit. So it seems that it's possible that the missing tickets and or money would never have been noticed if it weren't for Mr. Dumas, who just commented to Mr. Stevens that he had just paid for his ticket with a $50 bill. And so Mr. Stevens would expect to find a $50 bill in the ticket bag. However, he did not, and there were 10 tickets missing with the overall value of $50. Mrs. Bowman claimed the missing tickets were torn and could not be used. And if you balance the ticket money bag without the 10 tickets, then it would balance. Otherwise, it would be $50 short. So what I need to know is, where are the 10 missing tickets? I would think that when you turn in a money bag with the tickets, every ticket should be accounted for. If there are some that weren't used, they should be in the bag. And apparently Mrs. Bowman didn't seem to think that she had to supply those. So not only was a $50 bill missing, but those tickets should be accounted for in some way. So I also need to know, who was the other parent that was working with Mrs. Bowman? There's supposed to be 2. And what does that parent have to say? Mr. Dumas, what kind of information can he give me? So has something like this happened before? Maybe it did and it wasn't noticed. And I also need to see if there's any administrators or mentors that might have some advice on how to handle this. Also, are there legal implications? Are there district policies in place or procedures? How can I maintain the goodwill of my parents, and instead of trying to go after one and alienating all of them? And number 1, what kind of changes do I have to make in my procedures to ensure this doesn't happen again? So the problem is, as I just said, to me, the number 1 thing that has to come out of this is better procedures in place. I need to develop them, I need to communicate them to stakeholders, and I need to enforce them. This is what's really best for all students. Recovering the missing $50 may not be possible, and it may not be the best outcome if there's other implications involved with that. So my plan of action: 6 steps: review all the accounting procedures, document all the information that I gather, and when I have all that, contact my superintendent or the district office, and then interview all the interested parties, decide what to do about that missing $50, if it is in fact missing, and then, number 1, develop more stringent accounting procedures, communicate them, and enforce them. So strategies to implement the plan. Strategies for step 1. There's supposed to be 2 parents taking ticket money, and so who counts and documents this before the parents get the money? How is it distributed to the parents? And are those 2 parents always present? Are they present at the initial counting? Are they present when every item is sold? And are they present at the end when they count the money? It seems that that's probably not true. And then I need to document everything I've learned, everything I did with the money and the tickets after the game, all the procedures that I talked about in the last slide, and everything else that I can get, all the information that I can get about what has happened from the beginning to the end. Step 3, once I get my information, once it's all documented, then I need to contact my superintendent or district office, and I need to ask them if they have any policies or procedures in place to handle this. I need to ask them about any legal issues. And I need to see if I have mentors out there that can give me some advice. Step 4, interview all the parties. I would interview Mrs. Bowman first, just to see where she stands. What's her attitude? Is she angry? Is she confused? Does she not even know what's going on? Is it possible she never even took the money? Is it possible something else happened to it? So I need to get all the information I can from her before I continue. And then I need to interview the parent that worked with her that night. And I think I would find a lot of answers in that. I would find out if there were 2 people present at all times when handling the money. I need to confirm from Mr. Dumas that he really did pay with a $50 bill, just to be sure. And I should also interview any other parents working that night. Step 5, I need to decide what to do if that $50 is missing, which it sounds like it is. I need to decide what to do about it. If my number one goal here is to have procedures in place, develop procedures, communicate them to people, and enforce them to prevent this from ever happening again, if that's my number one goal, the $50 comes second, sadly. But if we don't have proof that she stole it, if our procedures don't supply that, then I don't want to charge her with it. And it may be better to let that $50 go, and just to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Step 6, this is the core of it. I need to develop procedures not only for ticket and concession sales, but for every single school fund that we are dealing with. And they need to be very strict and very stringent. And then these new procedures and policies have to be communicated to staff and parents, and not just once, but over and over again, just reminding people every time. And then they must be enforced. So resolving the issues in a way that promotes the success of all students. Data from the case. Mr. Stevens sounds like a great guy, and he's trusting the parents to maybe a large degree, at least a certain degree, and he needs those parents. He doesn't have enough help. He needs the parents to help with the collection of funds. However, what's best for all the students, not best for the parents and Mr. Stevens. My plan would ensure that the parents continue to want to help with the fundraisers. And this means that the children can still use the funds. They can still enjoy the events. There'll be parents that sell tickets. They can still enjoy the concessions. And these things, these events and the concession, all these athletic events and fundraisers, really, really important for the students. More data from the case. Not all the parents are trustworthy. They're just a group of people too. And so maybe a parent like Mrs. Bowman felt she deserved the money. She was turned down, and maybe she was angry, thought she should just take it because she could. The procedures in place did not prevent that. And so what's best for all students is that everyone knows that the school funds are well managed. There is no opportunity for theft. And so my plan would ensure that everyone knows that. They would ensure that the funds are used for all students, not individuals, and that the funds that people work so hard to obtain are not lost, and that I value strong ethics in everything related to the school. So a little more data from the case. The procedures in place did not prevent theft, if there was a theft, which it sounds like there was. And so either the procedures were not there or they were not enforced. And so parents were trusted to be honest, and maybe it's worked out. But eventually when you do that and the procedures in place to prevent theft are not there, someone is probably going to steal something. So what's best for all students? Have those procedures in place, communicated to stakeholders, and enforced. And this way everyone's going to feel secure in the management of the school and the handling of school funds. And it also presents a model to students in how to deal with problems like this. So debriefing the problem, what was I thinking? I'm really thinking, what's the best way to handle this issue so that it's the best outcome for all the students in my school? And part of that is keeping the goodwill of the parents. And how can I ensure that when I develop these policies, all the staff and the parents will implement them consistently? What was I feeling? Pretty angry at Mrs. Bowman. If she did take the money, it's so petty. And frustrated that the procedures that were in place didn't prevent the problem, and worried that whatever I come up with, I don't do a good enough job, a thorough enough job for the outcome to be the best thing for all my students. And so what do I value? The students, of course, and the parents, including Mrs. Bowman, and the security of our school funds, the benefit of having these school events for the kids, and all of that kind of comes under effective and efficient school management. And it also reflects on our school climate and our culture, one of honesty and good ethics. So the things that I need to investigate further, how do other principals manage these kind of problems? And how can I train students and staff and parents so that the procedures that I develop are implemented fully? And also should maybe look into hiring more help in some capacity to handle things like this. And so evidence of promoting the academic success and personal well-being by ensuring effective and efficient management of the school. So effective and efficient management, my plan would establish effective and comprehensive accounting procedures for handling of any school funds. And it would also provide for effective and efficient communication for all those procedures and also the implementation of them. So promoting the social learning of every student so that the climate that promotes good ethics and respect and honesty, all these attributes are promoted by creating clear guidelines and expectations for behavior. And this kind of an atmosphere, this kind of a climate helps support appropriate social learning for all students. And so student academic learning, when students are in a climate with strong and clear guidelines, with expectation of ethical behavior and honesty, that's when they can really focus on their studies. And rather than having a climate of uncertainty and wondering about how things are managed, how things are and just the overall management of the school, students need to feel safe and secure in order to really focus on their studies. Thank you for watching.